Welcome to A Slice of Therapy. This podcast was created with Anchor. And if you've not heard of Anchor, let me explain. It's free. It's a really easy way to make a podcast. And it helps me because I can just do this every day directly into my phone, because there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So if you fancy making a podcast too, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's a funny old thing, the brain, because when you think about it, the brain has absolutely no access, not directly, no direct access whatsoever to the outside world. What your brain is something that is stuck in a dark, windowless chamber called the skull. And so your brain has no direct access with whatever is outside of us whatsoever. What it does is it relies on certain signals from our various senses. And based on those signals, this thing, which has no direct access whatsoever to the outside world, which is stuck in a dark, windowless chamber called the skull, it creates this visualized sense of the world that we experience. It constructs the world that we live in. And the weird thing is that the world that we experience is not the world out there, but the construction that our brain makes up based on all these different signals. And it's obviously a very good one. It's a very useful one because we're not bumping into walls every 2 minutes. And yet the brain, in many ways, kind of hallucinates this thing into existence in this wonderful way. And it's part of the reason why dreams are so vivid as well. Have you noticed how dreams are so lifelike? That the details, that point where you're just in between waking and sleeping and you're falling asleep. And so you're a bit more conscious of these kind of dreamscapes that are being brought up just as you're about to fall asleep. And you notice that the level of detail in these worlds that you're experiencing as you're between wake and sleep are so fascinatingly detailed. And that when you are actually dreaming, you're in the dream and it feels so realistic that you don't know that you're in the dream until you wake up again. And the reason why dreams are so realistic is it's the exact same hardware, the exact same thing, the brain, in this dark chamber we call the skull, is recreating a dream world for you using the exact same mechanisms and software and hardware as it does when we're awake and we're walking through life itself. We're walking through this construction of the world. And so just as the brain is able to kind of create this thing for us so we can walk around with a sense of the world that we occupy, it does exactly the same in dreams to such an incredible extent that we believe while we're asleep that we're in this world, this dream world that the brain has constructed. Now, the great thing to take advantage of in all of that is that as the brain imagines something really real during our sleep, creates these dreams that we think are reality while we're going through them, because the brain has this amazing power to create things, and because the brain is locked in this chamber the whole time and doesn't have direct access to the outside world, these things that the brain constructs, these imaginings, are limbic systems, our emotional response systems, find it really difficult to tell the difference between what we imagine and what we experience. And so there's a great possibility there as a result that many people have used. This isn't a new pie in the sky idea. But this is something that we can use, this capacity of the brain to imagine and create something that our own systems respond to. And we can do that in therapy using things called imaginal enactments, where we can use the imaginal power of the brain in order to give us experiences, which are the kind of things that will actually soothe our nervous systems. In fact, sports people do this an awful lot. They call it visualization. And so what most sports people will do is visualize running the race, visualize kicking the football, visualize making the try, visualize hitting the ball with the bat. And the reason why they do that is for that same reason that our systems can't actually tell the difference between the reality that we live in and the imaginings that we can more consciously create. There was even a study done whereby sports people were training. They were basketball players and they were throwing the ball into the hoop. And they each trained an equal amount of time, Group A and Group B. But Group A, once their bodies were tired, they then visualized with their mind. They visualized throwing the ball into the hoop successfully over and over and over again. And even though their bodies were too tired, and so their bodies could no longer train, their mind and their body are so integrated, and the body responds as if it's real, that when they were tested again in terms of how accurate they were throwing the ball, the first group who trained and did the visualizations were much more successful. And so I'm going to keep this idea short, really, rather than digging into it. But it's something worth thinking about. To what extent can we use that wonderful imagination that we've got to actually make life better for ourselves? Now, we've all experienced using that wonderful imagination that we've got to make life worse. When we tell ourselves scary stories, when we think, oh, but what if? And then the what if is actually a scary story about the future that worries us, that makes us anxious. And so I wonder what it would be like then to use that same wonderful imagination to create stories that actually lift us up, that benefit us, or even reenact certain things from our lives so that we actually got it just how we wanted it. And so I'm throwing this idea open to you because there is such a power in imagination that it is actually something that we can use in therapy, and there's lots of evidence behind it which suggests that it's really, really powerful to use imagination in this way. There's studies around imagining the perfect parent. There's studies around where it's about redeciding something from the past using the imagination. And of course, there's the forward-facing stuff around visualization as well. And so as well as just talking about one story, as well as making all sorts of kind of habit-based changes, let's not forget too that we have this wonderful tool, a really powerful tool called the imagination. And just as we often use the imagination in order to make life worse for ourselves, we can use that same imagination, that powerful tool, to create ourselves a reality, which is the kind of reality that we want, to paint the kind of pictures that lift us up and give us confidence and give us hope for the future. So if you like this idea and you think others would like it as well, then please share it along. You could work with me directly one-to-one if you wanted help with this kind of thing. My name's Alun Parry. You'll find me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. You can see all of these as videos at sliceoftherapy.com. And you can subscribe to the podcast completely free wherever you get your podcasts. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back with another one tomorrow.